All right. I mean, you had to have a conversation with her about this, and she's not very old. So, and family, all these other things. And then all of a sudden, ownership. Whoa. Risk, late nights, dealing with like staff. I don't know if this is for me.
Yeah.
Was that ever part of the conversation when you first, how'd that first conversation go when you talked to her about this?
Yeah, all of those things you just kind of mentioned were kind of being ready to be on the table. I think the first conversation I had with her was, do you want to make a transition? Because she graduated and went to work for someone else. And so I reached out to her and just said, hey, I'm in a place where I can bring someone on. But the funny thing about that conversation was I was not also in a place where I could pay her as much as she was making somewhere else. Right. And so part of that conversation had to be, this is what we can do for this year. And as you come on and add to, then this is where we can be. And so we did a couple of things where we said, we'll guarantee a salary because we knew we could look at that. We could say, this is what we know we can do. Right. And if we're successful, then we'll bonus you after the first year. Right. And then we said, and, like I said, I don't think it was a significant pay cut, but it was definitely something that she had to consider and say, well, I know. And that's where I guess she also knew us well enough that she was willing to kind of step to that point. But I think all of those things. So our goal in the beginning was a 2-year associateship. And then we didn't really put in paper that there was going to be any buy-in. We just talked and said, at that 2-year, when we get close to that 2-year, let's look at see what we are. And if we've done really well in that 2 years and we feel there's compatibility, then partnership is on the table. But Excellent. It was never written down to say partnership's on the table. It was more like, let's see, because if she didn't like it, she had an out. If we didn't like it, we had an out. And I think that needs to be understood, or, because, I mean, heck, you don't want people to come in and, say, oh, I want partnership, and it's just not a good fit. So we really wanted that 2 years of being able to do that.
Excellent. So, and during that 2 years, it probably gave her time to get more comfortable, obviously, as an associate, but with the expectation, or with the hope that, we are going to have a conversation about ownership at some point in time.
Yeah. So, and I think, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, so when the 2 years was up, then what was the conversation then?
Yeah. And I was going to say, in that time, as we began to realize, hey, this is a good thing, we began those conversations and said, hey, let's start looking at what our options are here. Where are we? Where do we need to be? And I think that maybe will come up here in a conversation in just a second, is how do you make that transition, right? What tools are out there to help you to be able to do that? So when we initially wrote our contract, we just used the American Association of Orthodontists attorney and just said, hey, help us to write a contract that protects our associate and protects us as an entity, and allows us to not be overwhelmed with too much verbiage or things, but just keep the legalese right so that we're all protected. And so when
this was the initial contract for the 2 years, right?
Yeah, the initial contract. Yeah. So we just used that, and it worked really well, I think. And so when we got to that year point and knowing things were good, and in that next year, we were really talking through it and saying, hey, is this something you really want to do? And kind of answering what you asked a second ago was, what are those things that she's going to be doing, right? Are you okay for ownership? Do you want to be just an associate? And those were, open conversations that she and I would have quite often to make sure that she was wanting to. And then you start to talk about, okay, now the cost of this thing, what's it gonna be? And that's where we then decided to go with a third party, one of these transition companies. And I think that's critical.
100%.
I think you got to find somebody that's in the know on transition and help you to be able to see if the numbers are going to work out.